Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're here to talk about some Nebraska and Purdue. We got another big game coming up for the Huskers, trying to get closer to bowl eligibility, and yeah, I guess let's get into it, Danny. Nebraska and Purdue. I mean, what were your first what are your first impressions, I guess, at this matchup before we get to like the keys or all that other stuff in our predictions? Just what are your first impressions of Nebraska and Purdue?
It's not going to be an easy game. I mean, you look, I know it's different players from last year, but Purdue has always seemed to give Nebraska a hard time. You remember last year the overtime loss with Aiden O'Connell juking Ty Robinson out of his sneakers, and it was a very offensive-minded game. I believe that was the game that Trey Palmer went absolutely bonkers. What game did Trey Palmer not go absolutely bonkers? But Purdue always is a tough opponent. They play hard and they play Nebraska. You know, they're a solid foundational team. It's kind of like Northwestern. They don't commit too many penalties, and they know what they do well, and that's going to be important. To kind of remember as Nebraska, honestly, is still kind of trying to find themselves, especially offensively. Early in the season.
Yeah, well, you look at this matchup. I think at least it started Nebraska as a 2.5 point favorite, which tells you it's pretty even money, in terms of how the odds makers see it. And yeah, Purdue they have been kind of a weird team this year. They're 2-5, 1-3 in the Big Ten, but they did beat Illinois by like 25 points. I mean, they really pounded Illinois. They beat Virginia Tech was their other Power Five win. They lost late against Fresno State, and they got blown out by Ohio State. I'm forgetting what their other loss was, but it has been an interesting season. Hudson Card, they have Ryan Walters from the Illinois defensive coordinator last year as their head coach. Hudson Card's the quarterback, came over from Texas. They're running an air raid type of system. Similar to Wisconsin, but they do like to run the football with Devin Mockabee. If fans remember, he had 178 yards against us last year against Nebraska. So slowing him down is going to be
I do
important.
remember, yeah.
Yeah, and what's weird about Purdue is they've got 20 touchdown or Card has 7 touchdown passes, but they have 13 rushing touchdowns. So, and when they get near the red zone, they do really like to run the football. And something else we were mentioning, off the air is this is a defense that is very good at getting after the quarterback. They're third in the Big Ten in total sacks. Nebraska's second, just for reference point. And they rank 19th in the country. And we all know that obviously the offensive line is going to be a topic of conversation. So are those guys, how do you think that offensive line is going to hold up against Purdue this week?
I don't have a good feeling about it. I don't like being negative, but I don't have a good feeling about Nebraska being able to hold Purdue. I think honestly, offensively, we're gonna have to get a lot of quick passes out when we pass the football. And yeah, running the football is our strength, but I don't know how well we're gonna be able to do it against this Purdue defensive line with the offensive players that we have. Now, if there's one upside to this, it's that we're seeing freshmen develop in real time, but a lot of them have been put in tough situations already, and that's going to be the same story for the offensive line.
You see, it's interesting because what Purdue does, I mean, they don't, they aren't a great defensive team. They're allowing 395 yards a game. They're 100 ranked 100th in scoring defense. They allow 4.2 yards per rushing attempt, which isn't a great number, and they allow actually 240 passing yards per game. So their defense is not good. They have done a decent job of like taking the ball away. But it's interesting because Nebraska, obviously, you don't look at Nebraska as a team that's well equipped to take advantage of the pass. I guess the pass defense of Purdue. But we'll see. I can't. I think that Heinrich Harburg is obviously going to play better than he did last week. He had a couple of early interceptions, and I still have to give him credit because he played well the rest of the game. He didn't let that kind of impact his confidence. He hit Malachi Coleman for the big touchdown. So I mean, I think the game plan is going to be very similar. Pound the rock, run Harburg, run Emmett Johnson, run Anthony Grant. But yeah, the offensive line is going to be interesting. A lot of people wanted Teddy Prohashka to play, and now we're going to get to see that opportunity over Turner Corcoran. I thought Justin Evan Jenkins, acquitted himself pretty well
He did
last
really
week.
well, I thought. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he can do a good job at guard. And I've always thought that Henry Leftoski, did pretty well when he played in there. I
Yeah.
know he started a couple games last year, and And Nordin injury, if I'm not it's a few weeks, which
Yeah, like
obviously
2 weeks, I think.
we've only got like 5. So I mean, hopefully he'll come back, but I guess my biggest concern now is like you can't lose any more guys right now, because after that you're going to be looking at playing, some of these freshmen, which maybe they're ready to play. I don't know, but yeah, the depth is now becoming a concern.
Well, I mean, the thing is if, and I say if we get to a bowl game, right, then that'll push us out into December, and that'll give these guys a couple weeks to heal and continue to heal. So maybe we could see him at some point later in the season if we make a bowl game. I mean, for Newelly, obviously, Corcoran's out for the season, and some of these guys are out for the season, but this will give a chance for the line to get healthy. Should we make a bowl game and have those extra practices and things like that? So, I mean, I think it's going to all depend on how how we play these last couple games, and I think for Nebraska offensively, one of the things we're going to have to do is get Harburg out of the pocket, and Satterfield loves to offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield loves to start the game by throwing the football, you know, and getting wide receivers involved early. And I think for this game we're gonna have to play it a bit more conservative because it's almost like a tale of two halves. And I've said this throughout the entire season. He likes to pass the football early, and then we kind of stall, and then he finds his groove, and then we get back to what we do best. So I'm hoping we don't have a repeat of last week, because last week you remember we started passing the ball early, and that was 2 interceptions. So I'm hoping for a little bit better game plan to start off the game. And I understand that, they want to put players, they want to make players uncomfortable in the sense that they want to try things to help them, get better as a unit. But, the slow starts, we're lucky it hasn't cost us too badly yet.
Yeah, if Nebraska comes out and gives Purdue the ball inside the 30 twice,
Yeah.
this week, it's not going to be 3-0. So I mean, Hudson Card is excuse me, he's capable of taking advantage of the defense. So that's definitely something to watch. And yeah, the offensive line, I think it is going to be important to run the ball. And I get like with Satterfield, wanting to come out and not, trying to catch the defense off guard a little bit, but just go with what has got you to this point, and that's Heinrich Harburg running the football, and whoever's really at running back, because I mean, Gabe Urban, Grant, and Emmett Johnson have all really found success. I mean, the biggest issue has not been yardage; it's been taking care of the ball. So I mean, that's another thing, is that Purdue, these two teams, Nebraska has fumbled the ball 19 times. Purdue's fumbled the ball 13 times. So they both rank outside the top. Nebraska's fumbled it more than anybody. Purdue's like 123rd. So, and the weather's going to be bad. So it's like this ball could be all over the field on Saturday.
And we're lucky it hasn't caused us more of the fumbles. We've been able to recover a lot of them. So, I mean, I think you brought up a big name, one of my probably key players, Emmett Johnson. He's been really impressive. And I know the running back depth is not strong, and I know it's been a beaten up position, but Emmett Johnson has really taken advantage of the opportunity. He rushed for over 70 yards last week, and I've been really impressed with his decisiveness and his quickness through the hole. And, he doesn't dance, he just runs straight, and he's able to pick up nice yardage that way. So I'm looking for another big game from him.
Yeah, I have been impressed with him. I thought, but Nebraska was missing something, not running Anthony Grant a little bit more, but he did a really great job last week. I think he had the only, explosive run maybe in the game. Harburg might have had one too, but I know he had a plus 20-yard run last week, Emmett Johnson, which I thought was a really good sign. And, but yeah, all these guys I think need to take care of the ball. And Matt Rule,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw his halftime speech against Northwestern, but I mean, he was talking about fumbling the ball like 4 times, and is that who the team we're going to be? Is that who we are? And at some point, these guys have got to get this figured out. I mean, it's been going. I mean, it was an issue in the spring game. I mean, I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh yeah.
there was fumbles in the spring game. So it's been. I mean, it was a constant talking point during fall camp. Like, I don't know. And I mean, as a coaching staff, I don't know what else you do. I mean, I'm sure they've gone through every drill possible to keep these guys, protecting the football. And so that's why, I mean, sometimes as a coach, it can be frustrating, because even if you do all the things you think you're supposed to do, these things are still happening. I'm not sure what the deal is, but hopefully it was just like a weird thing, and we have like 3 fumbles for the rest of the way, and that number will kind of even itself out a little bit. I do think that is part of it, just like a lot of weird fumbles and things like that. But you can't in this game. This is one of the games where Nebraska can't lose the turnover battle. I mean, they've got to take care of it, and they have to be able to. If we're talking about the biggest keys, I think Nebraska has to run for about 150 to 200. They have to win the rushing battle. I mean, that's the formula for this team: outrun the opponent by about 100 yards. Sack their quarterback a bunch of times and don't give up any. I mean, that's been the formula, and I think it can work again this Saturday.
And on the fumble thing, you said you hope it's kind of just a weird thing. I mean, it's been a weird thing for 7 weeks. So how I don't know if it's a weird thing anymore so much as it's a communication issue or bad snaps because some of the snaps are bad. I will say just watching some of the snaps are bad, but I do hope they get that figured out. And I think another big key for me is to try to again to make the most of your red zone opportunities because you're not going to get I don't think you're going to get a ton of red zone opportunities in this game, both due to our inability to kind of move the football consistently and the Purdue defense. But trying to at least convert field goals, get into field goal range because I think Tristan Alvano is getting his confidence back. That 45-yarder he kicked into the wind that was an absolute laser made me believe that he's found his groove again.
Yeah, man, that thing looked good from like
Yeah.
55. Like I was like, man, if he was lining up for the Alex Henry 57-yarder against Colorado, that would have been
Yeah,
good. But
that was an absolute bullet.
that was really good to see. And that is another point about this game that I mentioned in my 5 things to watch is that Purdue, in this year is 3 of 9 in field goal attempts. They have a couple of kickers that they try to use, and so they're 3 of 9. Tristan's 4 of 8. So I mean, in what could be a close game, I think that could really have an impact. And I know that Tristan has struggled a little bit this year, but I think if it comes down to him having to make a big kick at Lincoln Memorial Stadium Saturday, I feel pretty confident that he'll deliver. So I think Nebraska, has an edge in the kicking game there if it comes down to a field goal.
And I actually got a message from one of our longtime listeners, and he said a topic we could address maybe going forward is who is the most important player on this team. I honestly think it might be Albano. And I'm not saying that to exaggerate, but I mean, Harburg, obviously him playing well is important, but as far as conversions, like if we can just get into field goal range, Alvano's, consistency and stuff like that, I think he is probably one of the most important players moving forward.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Who are the most important players on the team? Like who could Nebraska, least go without? Honestly, like I would say Robinson and Nash Hutchmaker. I would say those I
Yeah,
can't separate those two, but I think they have been the most impact because like if you look at why this defense is dominating, and it's those two guys more than anything. And they're both, like Ty Robinson. I mean, Clemson, we had to beat Clemson out for him. Like there was a lot of guys that wanted him, and he's playing like the recruit that we thought he was going to be. Same with Nash. So I mean, yeah, Tristan's going to be a really important player, and like Harburg, you could say too. But if he went down, I do think that Jeff Sims could find a way to be productive for this team. But like if you lose Nash or you lose Ty Robinson, there's nobody else on this
yeah.
roster, at least right now, that can do what those guys can do.
We were wondering last year, like why did we beat out, Clemson for Robinson? He's not playing like a Clemson type of recruit. Terrence Knighton, again, we've given him props on this, show before. He's done a great job with the defensive line and getting the most out of the players. And now we see why Clemson wanted Ty Robinson and the entire Nebraska staff flew out to recruit him back in the day. Now we're seeing the importance of Nash Hutchmacher, and he is absolutely dominating on the line. So, as much as I just said Alvano, I do agree with you that Hutchmacher and Robinson are going to be very important moving forward. And I think I think I think this team can win games without Harburg being the main star. We've kind of seen that at points. And
Mm-hmm.
so I do agree that he's important, but I think we can I think, guys like Emmett Johnson and, Anthony Grant, they can help us win games without Harburg doing a ton, which is a good thing.
And with Terrence Knighton, good old pot roast. You do, you bring up a really good point about guys that are playing much better than they did before. Ty Robinson, Nash, but then look at the job he's done getting these young defensive linemen to play. I mean, Cameron Leonard, Prince Umamalian. I know that he's more of a jack now, but I mean, I
Riley
think
Van
there's
Poppel.
yeah, Riley Van Poppel. I'm trying to think of the other. There's another guy, Raekwon Buckley, who probably would step
Yeah.
in if Nash, went out. He actually has played. I shouldn't say that there would be that big of a. I mean, I do think there would be a drop off, obviously, but there just has been. Terrence Knighton has done a really good job, and maybe outside of all the assistant coaches, like probably only Tony White has impressed me more than him. And so yeah, but you talk about the formula for Nebraska. I mean, in the heyday, was offensive and defensive line playing well, and the D line is getting there, and the O line is getting there too. And the thing with Teddy, I'm really curious to see what happens with him, because I think there could be some rough points to start, but this kid is a top 100 talent, and he does have a lot of, he's got the long arms and the length, and he's got a lot of things that you would look for in a prototypical left tackle. So hopefully, like the light comes on for him, and everything works out, because when he's been healthy and played, he's been effective.
And you know what? You mentioned the offensive line, and I thought they played really well last week. I've been quick to dunk on them all the time, quite honestly, but I thought they played really well last week, and I thought, especially on that, kind of belly pass to Malachi Coleman. I almost said McCole Hardman, but he might as well have been with that speed. I think the belly pass with the clean pocket and the nice protection gave Harburg time to throw, and you have to wonder if maybe play action should be more part of this offense moving forward, because I thought the offensive line did a really good job of protecting and giving Harburg time to throw, and I thought they did a good job throughout the entire game of just making sure that Harburg was able to get the ball off. So I did see some improvement last week, and I have seen some improvement overall this season.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with that. And the play action, I would like to see, some more play action, shots. I've been calling for it for weeks to get a shot to Malachi Coleman. I finally got one,
They
and
finally listened
boom,
to you, Chris.
and touchdown. Like
Yeah.
just the kid can run, man. There's not, he's got Malachi Coleman has abilities that you can't teach. He's 6'5" and he runs 4.4. Like that's not. I mean, like you make that up in a lab. Like this guy's a freak. Like get him the ball. And so, yeah, I just think too, eventually, the more at some point, that's why the running game is important, right? Because you do have to get big plays in the passing game, but at some point, if a team is just getting 4, 5, 6 yards on you, like you have to start loading the box up. And that's when Nebraska can take these play action passes and take those shots. And I think just, even if it doesn't work, if you take one or two of those a game to Coleman or Doss or Jalen Lloyd or, whoever, I think it opens things up where the defense now has to respect that. Whereas, I mean, Nebraska hadn't taken a deep shot in a little while. So I was glad to see that for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, and it allows the receivers to utilize one of their biggest strengths, speed. And you recruit these guys partly because of their speed, and quite honestly, speed has been a big selling point and a big focus for this coaching staff. I mean, we heard it in the introductory press conference back in December last year. And so, utilizing their speed and utilizing their playmaking ability. I mean, you look at some of the other freshman wide receivers. Zachariah Branch is making a big impact out at USC. So, you know, just getting these wide receivers involved and continuing to develop the position. I mean, developing the position is not something that previous coaching staffs have done real well. So, just continuing to develop, this group will set us up nicely for the future.
So looking at this Purdue game, what's not that we have to do like three keys or anything, but what's one thing that you think Nebraska has to do to win this game?
Red zone conversion, same thing as last week. I mean, you know, we've shown that we can get down the field, but making the most of the opportunities, aka touchdowns, I believe is, going to be crucial in this game because we don't know how many chances we're going to get, and I don't expect Purdue's offense to be as stagnant as Northwestern's was at times last week. So just red zone conversions again. Make make the important plays, not the sexy ones. And that's what we've seen from the offense, quite honestly, so far this year, and that's going to have to continue on Saturday.
Yeah, red zone efficiency is going to be huge, and we'll have to, improve. I think the biggest key for me is just that running battle. If Nebraska can hold Purdue under 100 yards and can rush for close to 200, I think they're going to win the game. And that's, I know that's like that's not like a bold statement if you outrush somebody by 100 yards, but that's what they've done almost every single. I mean, outside of the Michigan game, they've done that almost every single game. I mean, they did it to Illinois, they did it to Minnesota, they did it to Colorado. I mean, Louisiana Tech, Northwest. I mean, they've done it 6 out of 7 games. So it's not like, a far-fetched thing to say like, oh, they're going to outrush Purdue 180 to 90, but that's what needs to happen. Like 180 to 200 to 90 yards. And I think, if you force Purdue to, into longer down situations, that will let our pass rush, be more effective. And if we're running the ball, I think that will limit their pass rush. And I think that's the key for Nebraska to winning the game: run to win and to stop the run, which to me has been two of our biggest strengths this season.
And a lot of times, if you win the rushing battle, you also win the clock battle. And controlling the
Mhm.
clock, I think, is going to be an important factor as well. So, I mean, like you said, as long as they rush the football, then we'll definitely be in this game.
Do you have
And
any X factors for this game?
Emmett Johnson. I mean, you talk about rushing the football. Emmett Johnson. I think he's going to be an X factor player. And then I think defensively, I think Polar Bear and Ty Robinson again. They're going to need to show up again, and they're going to need to get to the passer, and you know eh, that just kind of made me think of players who have really flourished this year that didn't last year. Omar Brown. I mean, Omar Brown and that
Yeah.
secondary has really played at a high level. So make their job easier and don't necessarily rely all on them. Make sure to get to Hudson Card because Card is a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, we the secondary has been really good this year. I mean, Omar Brown, like you said, has just been night and day from makes you like, why the hell wasn't this guy playing last year?
I was just gonna say it boggles my mind. He didn't get playing time last year. I
Yeah.
remember doing like the spring previews a couple months ago, and like his stats were so minimal, and he only appeared in like this many games. And I think it just goes back to the staff putting the best players on the field this year, and he's shown that he's more than earned it for sure.
Yeah, so one of my X factors though is going to be Malcolm Hartzog. I don't know if he's been playing some corner and safety this week, and I just feel like he hasn't. I don't think he's got an interception yet this year. Maybe he has one. Maybe he got one against Colorado.
I'm gonna look that up for you right now while you're talking. And
But at any rate, I did expect him to, make more plays this year. And I know he hasn't been, playing quite as much cornerback, but I just think with all the passing that Purdue's going to do, and I think we're going to slow down their running game. I think he's going to get some chances, and I just, he intercepted a pass against Purdue last year, and I think he's going to do the same thing this year. I think he's going to find a way to make a big play for Nebraska on Saturday.
And I kind of like the idea of him not playing corner as much this year because as athletic as he is, his size kind of does hinder him a little bit in certain situations. I mean, he's 5'9", and you know that's not necessarily the best size for a corner, but that athleticism makes up for it. And he has 29 tackles this year, and it says 0 interceptions according to ESPN. Although I could have sworn he got one, but
Maybe it got overturned, or could have been somebody else I was thinking of, but I think maybe he did get one overturned where
I think it
he.
might have been the Illinois game because I know Newsom got one overturned, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but at any rate, sounding like the guy from Bugs Bunny there for a second. Anyway, but at any rate, Malcolm Hartzog is due for an interception, and I think there's a chance he could get one on Saturday.
he had 5 tackles last week, which was his highest amount of the season so far. And I think his athleticism allows him to really get after the offensive players, and if he's not playing corner, and then his speed on the outside when he is playing corner allows him to disrupt wide receivers. So he has been, one of Nebraska's better defensive recruits in quite some time, and we were wondering if he would be able to make as big an impact in his sophomore season as he did last year, and he's he's become a staple of the defense now. So it's good to see that development really kind of accelerate a bit.
Yeah, and exciting that he'll be back next year too. So, all right, Danny, it's we've
Oh,
moved to prediction time here.
all
So,
right.
I do have to toot my own horn a little bit right now because as we're sitting here and going into week 8, straight up picks this year on Nebraska games, I'm 7-0. I haven't missed a game. So in terms of straight up picks now against the spread, not doing as I think I'm 3-4 against the spread. So I mean, not terrible, but
Spreads are tough. Spreads are tough.
yeah.
So
Well, I just keep getting. It's like if they could have got one more point last or like one more field goal last week, I would have got it. Louisiana Tech got that late touchdown, which so allowed them to cover the spread. So not that far off, but I'm pretty proud of my 7-0 record. But what's overall, what's your prediction this week, though? I mean, regardless of what the spread is.
I don't know. So I'm gonna have to think about this for a second. You give me your prediction, and then that will give me time to think. And I promise
Okay.
I won't copy your prediction, and I'll try to.
So I put out a prediction. I always do one when I break down the odds and put out a prediction this week. So I think it's going to be a close game, a battle all the way, and I think Nebraska's going to pull it out late, 20-17. I think Tristan Albano is going to hit field goal in the fourth quarter, and the defense will get a big stop. And I think it's going to be a nail biter. But Nebraska, I'm going to say wins it 20-17.
I'm gonna say 31-24 Nebraska. I think it's still gonna be close, and I do think Alvano will have a big hand or foot in this game. And so I think Nebraska is gonna win, get to 5 wins, and inch ever so closer to the bowl game and bowl game opportunities. And I know this has been talked about before on the Facebook pages and things like that, but getting to a bowl game also means 15 extra practices. So when you look at a bowl game and the excitement of getting to a bowl game, those 15 practices are definitely something that you need, especially with a team this young.
And yeah, especially with this coaching staff, that's like 15 practices are like gold. So that would
Yeah,
be really
absolutely.
great. Make sure that another thing I did want to mention is that if Nebraska wins this game, there's a very good chance that we'll be tied for first because Wisconsin's playing Ohio State on Saturday, and I don't think they're winning that game. So Minnesota would still technically like own the tiebreaker over us, but we will be tied for first place in the Big Ten West if we win Saturday. That's my prediction, and I believe that it will happen. So
And
make
it'll be 2
sure.
games above 500.
Yeah, 2 games above 500, only 1 game from getting bowl eligibility. So, at any rate, make sure that you guys join us on Saturday. We'll have our weekly pregame chat to talk about Purdue. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Do us a big favor, so you don't miss any of our content. Hit the like button, get into the comments section, check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. And as always, guys, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.